Welcome to Educate Us. I'm your host, Josh Lake. In our last episode, we talked about the Persistently Dangerous Schools list. In this episode, we will be focusing on how we got onto the Persistently Low Achieving list and how we're getting off it. Join us in our studio. With us today in our studio, we have three representatives from the school community, and from my left, they will introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Peg Normandin. I'm the turnaround principal for Schenectady High School.
Hi, I'm Lori McKenna, District Director for Planning and Accountability.
And I'm Jeff Pelletier, a math teacher at the high school, and I work closely with the 10P team.
Now, Lori, what does school accountability mean under the No Child Left Behind Act?
Under No Child Left Behind, every school receives an annual report card that is based on student achievement results for English language arts, mathematics, and the graduation rate. Schenectady High School is one of those schools who receives an annual report card, and based on that report card determines whether a school is in good standing or is a school in need of improvement.
And may I ask what the Schenectady High School's status is?
Sure. Schenectady High School is considered a persistently lowest achieving school, and that means that the school is furthest away from the state standard. The state standard is determined based on a combined score of the English language arts results and the mathematics regents results. And that number is compared to a number that the state predetermines that the school needs to meet or exceed in order to be a school in good standing.
Now, what does a school that is on the PLA list have to do?
Well, it needs to do several things, and Peg will get into this a little bit more later on. However, based on the persistently lowest achieving status, the school must implement one of 4 intervention models. And those intervention models are turnaround model, and that means that if we select that model, we must replace the principal of the school and then 50% of the staff teaching in those content areas. That is not a model that we have selected. The second model is called the restart model, and that would mean that we would close the school down completely as a charter school. Obviously that is not an option either because we only have one high school in Schenectady. The third model is called the transformation model, and that is actually the model that Schenectady High School has selected to implement because of the persistently lowest achieving status. And Peg will talk a little bit about that in just a minute. The fourth option, and obviously not an option either, is school closure. And like I said earlier, because we only have one high school in Schenectady, closing Schenectady High School is not an option.
Ms. Normandin, what exactly are we doing to get off the list?
Our process actually began last year as we undertook a high school restructuring plan, and a broad-based committee of school administrators, district administrators, parents, students worked on a plan. Then last spring we received notice that we were the recipients of a federal Department of Labor grant because of our status as persistently dangerous. And there's a lot of connections between our status and lowest achieving through the state as well as persistently dangerous from the federal government. Last spring I was named as the turnaround principal, and my job is to begin to implement programs as we turn around Schenectady High School. We took several plans, our plans for our Department of Labor grant, our high school restructuring plans, some suggestions made to us by the state, and we created what's called a consolidated action plan. And we have taken that and focused our energies on particular programs to make change at Schenectady High School.
Now, may I ask what exactly a turnaround principal is?
My responsibilities this year, last year I was one of the high school house principals, and this year my role is I'm the change agent. I'm the person that's supposed to make change and guide the consolidated action plan and the programs related to our Department of Labor grant, as well as our changes to our high school restructuring plan. So it's about programs and creating change.
Now, may I ask, is there any specific programs that are in act to help?
We've had a very busy year and lots of changes at Schenectady. Probably most notable has been our 9th grade academy program. One of the things that we did was to separate out students that had not previously been successful in grade 9, and we created a program called 10P. We also separated out and created a lot of tightly teamed classes for all of our 9th graders at Schenectady High School. We see initial success at that. We're anxious to see our end of the year results.
Now, Mr. Pelletier, I understand that you're a 10P teacher yourself.
That's correct.
Is it a successful program?
Yeah, let me summarize a little bit more about what the program really is all about. Ms. Normandin mentioned that the whole 9th grade cohort has been teamed, and that's essentially what's happening with 10P. We're a closely knit team of teachers and students. As Ms. Normandin mentioned, the students have been identified as perhaps struggling in the past and having need for more academic support services, essentially. Myself, I teach mathematics. We have ELA, English teacher, a history teacher. We have a reading specialist and a special ed teacher that all work closely with these students. The students, we've got a big high school here, and what we've done with the 10P program is try to keep the students in closer proximity. Their classes are essentially all in one hallway in an effort to keep the focus on academics and to perhaps create less distraction for these students. The team itself has worked a lot with project-based learning. We've worked with team teaching. We've worked with content across the curriculum. And one of the great things that we did this year was introduce the media literacy project, where we had a group of experts from Proctor's and from other outside areas come in and work with our students to incorporate media and technology into ELA and history in an effort to increase their interest in these subjects and keep them engaged. So our students were writing scripts, shooting films, working with some really great technology, editing the films, and all this tied in with the content that they were looking to learn for these subject areas. These students, since they struggled in the past, are also receiving 2 credits for ELA and history in an effort to keep them aligned with graduating with their original cohort class. We've had advisory groups that focus on such topics as study skills, career choices, involvement in the school community, goal building, and our students have had the opportunity to work really closely with pupil personnel services just to provide them with the support and resources that they need to stay on task.
Now, this question's for all 3 of you. Is the community doing anything to back up these programs?
I think we're doing several things, and Peg will get a little bit into what the community is doing more in detail, but from the New York State Education Department perspective, because of our persistently lowest achieving status, we have been afforded the opportunity to apply for some grant funds for a school improvement grant to support some of these very issues or initiatives that we have mentioned this morning. It's a grant, it's a 3-year grant, up to $6 million. And the grant initiatives have to be directly linked to the restructuring plan that the high school has developed to enhance efforts to move the school from being a persistently lowest achieving school to a school in good standing.
Now, can you tell us a little more about the specific programs that are enacted through the grant?
Well, as Mr. Pelletier spoke about the 10P program, we've also added guidance counselors. So there's a guidance counselor that specifically works with his team and each of the 9th grade teams specifically. The teachers have common planning time, and there's a real sense of community and connection. We've also added a mentoring program that's just getting off the ground this spring. We're partnering with the Boys and Girls Club of Schenectady, and we're implementing mentoring for students. We have an additional program it's called the Home Run Program, and it is more counseling and support for families and students. Our partner with that is Berkshire Farms. We are working with Schenectady Job Training Association for summer employment. We were able to fund through our Department of Labor grant. There will be 500 jobs for students this summer that came through the Department of Labor grant. I think that's a very positive opportunity for our students to have jobs in our community. We have been able to, all of our ninth graders have had the opportunity to go on college visits this year. So every ninth grader at Schenectady High School has visited colleges and learned about how colleges and careers as a motivation. As we move towards, as Lori noted, as we move towards next year, we're putting even more things in place. We're looking at grade 10 and how we can build on some of our successes from grade 9. And so we will do some teaming at grade 10, not as tightly teamed as grade 9. We are looking for opportunities for more professional development so that we can change what's actually happening in the classroom.
Do you mean like teachers? Changing teachers?
Teachers, yes. So that you'll see in a lot of our ninth grade classes that it's not as teacher-centered, it's more student-centered, that there's more group work, more different opportunities for types of instruction in the classroom, more use of technology in our classrooms, and I think that that is the direction that we're headed. We've had extensive professional development this year for our 9th and 10th grade teachers in what's called differentiating the instruction, so that it's not a 60-minute class maybe broken down into separate lessons, separate segments, with a lot more attention placed on individual students and individual student needs and student-centered instruction, so that it's engaging and interesting and students want to be in the classes.
And just to interject, if I could, one of the requirements because of the status is for a team from the New York State Education Department to come in, and that's called a joint intervention team. And Peg mentioned a little bit ago that we had to incorporate those recommendations into our restructuring plan and ultimately into the school improvement grant. One of the recommendations, for example, is to have a consistent and uniform lesson plan format. So one of the efforts that Peg will be leading next year as we move forward is to create across content areas a uniform lesson plan so that there's that consistency between courses and students know exactly what to expect regardless of the course that they're walking into in any given period. Another example of what is required through the joint intervention team is, like Peg mentioned, the professional development, and a specific recommendation was the use of student achievement data for English language arts and mathematics, because we're identified in those areas as a PLA. So we're providing some professional development to classroom teachers on how to use the data from these assessments to really inform and drive their instruction and improve student achievement ultimately.
And if I may, elaborating a bit on the 10P program, we have a built-in academic support period where myself, the ELA teacher, the reading teacher, and the history teacher are all in the classroom with our students. As we're gearing up and getting ready for the Regents exams, we've actually had an emphasized focus on preparing for those exams. Speaking of technology, we've got what's called a smart response system in the classroom. Just recently we had our students sit down and go through a Regents exam, mathematics Regents exam, using the smart response system, and what it provided us with was immediate statistical information about what topics, question types that our students were struggling with. I was able to bring up this information right then and there. You know, we took 20 minutes to take the test. We looked, well, a few questions off the test, I should say. We looked at the statistics immediately afterwards, and we were able to go through and say, you know, here's a topic that you guys as a whole did great with. Here's a topic that 50% of you understood and 50% of you needed a little bit of additional information. So we've really been able to look at the statistics and kind of isolate our instruction and make sure that we're providing the best instruction possible to our students so that in June they can hopefully perform well on these exams.
It's really a pretty neat system, very student-friendly. It's little clickers, so that every individual student, not just those that would speak up in Mr. Pelletier's math class and give an answer, every student has an opportunity to respond to a question using this
Anonymously,
clicker.
right?
Well, it can be anonymously, or Mr. Pelletier can track his students.
When we did it on this particular occasion, we did it without student names entered in. So we essentially looked at the group as a whole and what they were doing well, what they were struggling with. What I thought was really neat is we were able to look at some multiple choice questions, and if the responses were split up, half of the class picked B, half of the class picked C, one of the answers was right generally and the other one was wrong. We were able to sit there and have a conversation about why it was that they chose the incorrect answer. Hopefully so that they can take that knowledge and make sure that they don't make that same mistake again. But as Ms. Normandin mentioned, you can also look at individual student reports and go so far as to say, you're great with this topic, you need practice with factoring. The results are showing that you need practice with quadratics. So here's the material that you're going to work on. You're okay with the other stuff, I don't need to waste your time with it. Let's focus on exactly what you need to practice before this test.
I think what's happened with the 10P program and with our 9th grade academy has created a lot of momentum for change at Schenectady High School, and that is the direction that we need to move forward for next year. You know, we're under pressure at this point to succeed, and we see the possibilities from what's happening in 9th grade, and that needs to spill into the other grade levels. The use of the response system, if we were successful with our school improvement grant, we'll actually be purchasing some more response systems that will be used in other classrooms. As a large high school, it's hard to get the technology out to everyone, but the grant will allow us to be able to purchase some additional so that we can use that in a U.S. history class or an English 11 class that also are facing Regents exams and high stakes testing.
Now, me being a student of the high school, I've used that and it really is effective. But
school-wide, we've also got the Performance Plus program, which isn't an immediate student response. You don't sit there with the clickers, but it's going to provide teachers and students with information about what subjects and skills and topics that they need additional focus on, and it's school-wide. Everybody has access to this program.
And the nice thing about that program, Performance Plus, is that it's not just for the Regents exams. However, we can upload the test data from the state level into Performance Plus and analyze the data more carefully. The Performance Plus allows teachers to input their formative assessments, meaning assessments that are given on a regular basis or quarterly, and analyze those test results and really drive the instruction from quarter to quarter. And then ultimately at the end, when you give a summative assessment, an end of the year assessment, or the Regents exams, you know exactly what you need to be focusing on at the individual student level. So this Performance Plus program will really help to move student achievement in the right direction.
It'll also allow us, as we look at curriculum, at the end of the year, when Mr. Pelletier's students take the Algebra Regents, it may be finished for those students, but there's a new group coming to Mr. Pelletier next year. And if there are any weaknesses in our program or in our curriculum, it will allow us to focus more energy on that. If for example, there's a particular section on the Algebra Regents that all of our students do not do well in, then we need to adjust our curriculum.
I have two more questions before we go. Mr. Pelletier, as a 10P teacher, do you make a closer connection with your children as, say, a regular teacher?
I see the students in the 10P program more often than I would, more often than I have with the scheduling that we've had in the past. So absolutely. The advisory groups also allow for different connections and the different career-oriented field trips and programs and whatnot that we've gone throughout the year have absolutely provided additional opportunities to make connections, and I think that's been a big part of the program, an important part of the program.
Now, even though it's not the end of the year and the reports aren't due to the end of the year, where do you guys think we stand as of this point? Like, are we doing better? Are we progressing at a faster rate than we thought?
Certainly, some of the initial data is showing that some success this year. For example, our mid-year attendance data, we were up in the 9th grade, including the 10P, at almost 12 percentage points, and that's a large gain. I credit that not only to our attendance deans, but also to the changes in the classroom. I think that as the classes become more engaging, students want to be in those classes. I think that they want to be a part of Mr. Pelletier's class and other changes that have happened with 10P and 9th grade academy. So we see initial data improvement. We hopefully that will show at the end of year results.
I'd like to thank you guys for being guests on our show, and I will see you next time on Educate Us. Welcome to Educate Us. I'm your host, Josh Lake.
Do it again. Start with a smile. Negative.
Welcome to Educate Us. I'm your host, Josh Lake. In our last episode, we talked. In our studio today, I'm going to mess up the same spot I did last. In our studio today, we have 3 guests, and I got to redo that.